Hi, folks. Thank you again for coming to Back to Basics for Season 3. Today, we're going to speak with Felipe Cofino, and we're going to find out what he's all about. But the main thing, what we're going to be talking about is human resources and the human connection that we have. And we're going to get to the details of that with our guest today, and we're going to have a fabulous time. And let's get on to Back to Basics. Stop wasting time with me. Let's talk to him. Hey folks, thank you again for coming to Back to Basics. You know, we've done the intro. We know what we're going to be talking about. We are going to be speaking with Felipe. And let me tell you something. Before we bring him in, I have spoken to him, I don't know, maybe a year and a half now on a different platform, a social media platform, and we became friends kind of offline, like through LinkedIn and whatnot. And then in a nice way, he's stalking me in my live shows. Like every Monday at 9 a.m., I go live, and he was there and he was supporting me. And now he's here on Back to Basics. I'm very honored. So let's stop talking to me. Why don't we bring Philip in and get to know him better, who he is and what he is all about. So Felipe, how are you? And thank you for coming to Back to Basics.
Oh, thank you, Girish. I'm doing great. I'm excited to be here, and I've always admired you and your Back to Basics show, and it's nice to finally be here. So my stalking has worked.
Yes, thank you again, Felipe, for coming here. But before we get into the topic today, which is actually one of my favorite topics, and we'll get into that. But what does Back to Basic mean to you?
To me, Back to Basics has always been, going back to just that human connections. Because with technology in the world, there's so many ways to become efficient and advance and connect with people. But sometimes going back to that human connection, I always say is crucial. And I train to it. I preach it in our culture at work, and I try to practice and lead by example because building those connections. And one example I always say is
Mm,
going back to the basics of building relationships.
mm,
you know Sales in this world, everyone's trying to sell. We're always trying to sell.
mm,
And I'm not saying anything wrong with it. That's part of life and business. But
mm,
what we realize is that, you know what, if you build those relationships and you build trust,
mm,
you don't need to sell because people will take your advice. And I
mm,
always have an example that I use. My mother, she used to go to our credit union up, or she still does, right up the street where I work. And she'd always tell me, "Oh, I'm coming up to the bank." I'm like, "Okay, great." And then all of a sudden she stopped telling me that. I'm
mm,
like, I'd hear from employees, "Oh, your mom was here today. Oh, your mom was here today." I'm like, "Oh, that's nice." And so finally I came home one day. I'm like, "Mom, why are you going back? Why are you going up to the bank so much?" She's like, "Oh, I've just been taking care of some things, but I haven't been telling you. Is that okay?" I'm like, "It's fine, but are you okay?" And she's like, "Oh yeah, I trust Crystal and Gladys. They always give me such solid advice. I built a wonderful relationship with them, and I really trust them. They give me the same advice as you. So I just
mm.
been going to them now for advice." And she's like, "I hope that's okay." I'm like, "Are you kidding? That's awesome. They stole you from your son. That's how
Yeah,
strong that relationship and trust is." And so that was a prime example of you don't need to have a sales approach or be salesy. Be a human being and connect at a human level.
that's right. That's right. Thank you again for Felipe for coming here, and thank you again for answering, and thank you for supporting me on the small podcast that I have. You know, let me ask you this: we we tend to call customer service many times, and now we're getting into a world where IVR is in place, and then automation is in place, and robots are talking to each other and talk like a normal person, and that's what they usually say. But honestly, they're honestly robots. They're actually automation. They're not really human connection. Is this the new world that we're getting into? And do you think it's kind of scary that you're getting into that world and there's no human connection?
There is a fear factor always. And I think it'd be silly for us not to have a little bit of fear because things could go astray. But I think we've been dealing with technology and advancements and AI for many years.
Mm,
I mean, everyone got freaked out when we had the internet, then Google, then Alexa came out, and now we have Chat GBT.
mm,
Part of it is just natural progression. However, I to the human connection though, I always tell people don't be afraid that something like Chat GBT is going to replace jobs.
mm,
Be aware of what skills it's going to replace,
mm,
and then use that time to learn a new skill that it can't do maybe,
mm,
or develop a skill that you haven't developed that it isn't easy for it to do because we are going to have skills replaced. That's just, and it's going to help us become more efficient. But
mm,
you have to look at using it as a tool and look at the value that we bring by putting that human factor into it. The things that
mm,
it can't do, the things that it needs us to prompt it to, because it still is an AI in a computer.
mm. I totally agree. I think that is that one time that you tap into your hard skills and replace it with a different hard skill. But then your soft skill is one thing that people they just don't tap into. You know, you and I connected. I'm not sure. I think I'm going to say 2020.
Yeah, I think it was what
Right?
about 2020. Yeah.
2020, and I think at that period of time, um, I got laid off from work back in 2020. And then I said to myself that there has to be a skill that I'm good at, not to make money, to be satisfactory. Do you think that's the world that we're living in also? That to be satisfied versus money nowadays?
I think there is a slight shift. I don't know if I wouldn't speak for the masses. I will
Yeah.
speak that there's a
Yep.
shift happening that I think people, for example, people with the pandemic are starting to realize, you know what? I value my time, my personal time. I value myself more. I want more work life balance if that even exists. But
Mm,
they're starting to see the value of, okay, if I'm going to be dumping all this energy and AI could replace certain skills in the future, why am I running myself ragged
mm,
if I'm not going to get appreciated? And that's an issue in a lot of companies right now that they're not appreciating and talent is leaving. Now, if
mm,
you're being rewarded and appreciated and recognized and hopefully compensated for all that you do, great. You have a good employer. But I
mm,
think when you have those chances where AI is going to come in and it's going to allow you to enhance those skills and people are going to be more satisfied with doing really well on certain things but not
mm,
on everything. They don't have to be great at everything,
mm,
and I think people are okay with that a little bit, and
mm.
they're okay with making a little bit less money, maybe not a lot less money, maybe a little bit less, or maybe they're not as worried about inventing it quickly if they are still getting some skills and still growing in their overall development.
Yeah. Thank you again. There has been several episodes that I've done, and we've talked about resume writing, right? And we don't know what type of skills we need to put up there. Well, we do, right? Because we're working in a employee in a company, and we're doing all the stuff what we're supposed to do Monday through Friday, or whatever the schedule that you work for. But we don't know at the inside as what their employees are looking, you know, what they're looking for. Do you think we should be tweaking up our resumes for the new employer, or do we give them the way it is? Because it's tough to get a job nowadays, isn't it?
And can you phrase the question again as far as tweaking it? In what sense? So tweaking the resume,
I don't
like
know.
as
Do I say myself that, I've been in the company for the last 15, 20 years, and am I old timer now? Or do I, you know, okay, let's put it this way. When I go to an interview, they usually say that you're overqualified or instead of underqualified. What do you think? We should tweak it up a little to bring it less skills, or do
so
we put too much in it?
Yeah, so there's always a balance there as well. You don't want to put too much on any resume because if you put too much, they're not going to read it. And I think that it's important to. I always say if your resume is going to be 3 pages because you're putting all this experience in there, no, you can shorten it. And sometimes after 10 years, you can leave stuff off the resume if you want to. However, if you've been at jobs for 10-year gaps, for 10-year stints, put all three of them on there. I think that having that experience is value. It's valuable. There's so much that brings into it. It shows somebody who has gone through maybe the decades and been able to adapt. That's a great skill to have.
Mm,
You want people who are continually willing to learn and grow. And here's the other thing. There's obviously the legal side of it of ageism. If you sit there and start looking at people being overqualified, now if they're looking to apply, I just had someone honestly on Monday. I interviewed them. They're applying for an IT job and they've been doing like IT senior systems administrator level work. I'm hiring for an entry level help desk role. I still interviewed him. I'm like, maybe he's looking to take less stress in his life. Maybe he's looking to slowly, early retirement and wants a lower stress job that he enjoyed. I don't know. So I entertained it. And he definitely was looking for more money. yesterday I had an interview with a similar person. They were in the mindset of, you know what? I'm going back to what I enjoy doing most. I'm good. My wife is early retirement, so I don't need to worry about money as much as I needed to. So I really want to join a good culture, good company, and do a job I enjoy doing. And to me, that's great. But for a recruiter to hear that, you don't always get the opportunity to say it in an interview. So on a resume, that's where, maybe on the objective, you can explain a little bit about what your mission is and plan is. So they know that you're not looking to make $80 an hour as a help desk, employee.
Mm,
They're realistic. And
mm,
that's the bottom line. Now, does every recruiter do that? No, I wish they would. I think most of the good ones do. And it's something that you never know when you might find an amazing candidate with amazing skills. So to me,
mm,
it's worth talking to those ones that have all that experience because I'm hoping that they've read the job description and they know what they're applying for.
mm. So I think what you're saying is screening is also very important when you're trying to hire someone or just to get to know that person better.
Yeah, well, a recruiter should always screen. You never know if you leave screening up to all the AI,
Mm,
you'll miss out so many diamonds in the rough, as I call it. There's so many people out there that you see the potential based on their previous jobs. I'm hiring for banking. Do I need previous banking experience? For
mm,
certain jobs, not necessarily. Do I need customer service, cash handling? Yeah. Well,
mm,
Target, Best Buy, all these places have that kind of skills. I can take someone like that and help them, and learn the banking side. So screening those resumes, looking for those key skills are crucial and finding those candidates that maybe don't have the perfect experience. Would I like
mm,
people to walk in the door saying, I've worked in a branch for 3 years and I'd love to work at your branch?
mm,
Sure. Who wouldn't? But is that the reality? No, that's not the reality. So looking and screening for those things and looking for those skills, honestly, if you leave it to AI, outside of the only questions I would ever have automatically screen are questions that are just, for example, I'm not old enough to work there.
right.
I'm not. I don't have a visa to work in your country. Fine. Those things should be, automatically rejected and let them know why. And I think that's
Mm,
fine. But the
mm,
other ones, you never know when you might find an opportunity. Also for another position, I can't tell you how many times I look at a resume. I'm like, wow, they're not good for this position, but they'd be perfect for this other one.
mm.
I reach out to them. I ask them if they have interest. Great. If they not, understand.
Yeah, but Felipe, that's the difference between screening automated versus a human level as to, oh, you know what, he or she or whoever is a good fit to the other position versus this one. So I think that's the difference, and thank you again for explaining that. There are two types of people, which example that I'm going to give you. One is that who's been working for the last 35, 40 years, and they have so much of knowledge and so much of experience and skills and working skills for that matter, right? Which means what? 6 pages, 7 pages of resume versus a person who just came out of college and he has maybe 1 2 year tops, right? So what is that? Maybe 1 year, maybe 1 page, right? Um, so what are your thoughts on that? Too much is too much, less is
Yeah.
less. How much
Yeah.
should we put in? Should we just minus out, I don't know, 10 years of our lives so then we're younger because there's discrimination happening also? I mean, what are your thoughts on that part?
I'm not a fan of diminishing years to make you look younger per se. Again, because
Right.
at the end of the day, you end up looking like you might be lying, and you don't want to
Exactly.
look like that.
Exactly.
However, when you have that wealth of experience and you're proud of it, I'm proud of my experience. I love it, and thank God LinkedIn has a long version to put all your experience in there. But on a resume, when you have had, say, the last 3 jobs, say you were, an assistant manager, then the manager, and then you became a director in the same industry and same kind of job. Well, a lot of the duties are going to be repetitive in each of those jobs. Do you need to list the duties in every single job all 3 times? No, you don't. You
Mm,
can really shorten them. And as you get further away from current jobs, so for the last 3 jobs, great, you put some detail in what you did.
mm,
The jobs after that, you can be really brief on the detail because they're probably not as relevant. And
mm,
honestly, the recruiters are not as interested in those skills unless they're a prime skill that you don't have up there. But then you would list it. So I think as you get to the older jobs, just list the title, the job, the years in the company, and
mm,
then maybe 1 or 2 lines if you want of what you did there. But I wouldn't spend a lot of time there, and have that be your opportunity to save some space on the resume.
mm,
Um, and again, if you're listing oh, I worked at 7-Eleven, at the gas station, and at the drugstore for my first 3 jobs. Yeah, you don't need to have those on there. Your high school, college jobs, take them off. And if your first jobs really aren't that relevant, and I mean your first job when you graduate college or high school, if they're not relevant to what you're trying to do right now, go ahead and take it off. Again, it's not lying. Um, don't change when you graduated. That would be lying.
Yeah, yeah. Actually, it really depends on where you're applying to, right? So, in that aspect, I think you should have two resumes, right? Depending on where you're applying to. You think that's a good advice to do?
So if you're going to be applying for different industries,
Mm,
I always say, you want to customize maybe your objective. You want to highlight maybe different skills that you have. So it might vary. I'm not a fan of having multiple resumes. I'll be honest with you.
mm,
Again, for me, um, unless you're applying for different industries, but usually people aren't. Usually they're in the same industry. But I
mm,
will say, if you're in accounting, HR, sales, you could apply for manufacturing, automotive,
mm,
banking, hospitality. Yeah, I would tailor it a little bit. And what I mean by tailoring it is your past jobs cater the skills that and highlight the skills that match the industry. So if I'm talking about hospitality, I'm talking about service and service recovery. If I'm talking about banking, I'm talking about financials and service, So really cater and you use those key words in your resume
mm,
to tailor to those industries. That's what I would do. And if that causes you to have different resumes that way,
mm.
then do it by industry.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you so much for explaining that. Um, I'm pretty sure a lot of people were asking these type of questions, and they didn't know where to go when these questions come up. Let me ask you this. We're all about branding nowadays. When it comes to social media, when it comes to speaking, when it comes to whatever you want to be at the end of the day. But when you are applying for a job, you're just an employee. Do you think that's the right way?
All right.
Is that the right approach, or do you think that we should go there as I am Girish and I am a brand and I think I can make your company look better? You think that's the attitude I should go into?
No, no,
Or-
I definitely would not go in the attitude of like, hire me because my brand can make you look better. I think it's more
Exactly.
of the attitude is I understand the importance of branding and I
Mm,
value it, and I know how I can be an ambassador for your brand. And I
mm,
think that's the best way of taking it. Because again, I don't want to know how wonderful and great your brand is. I want to know
right.
that you understand branding, you understand how valuable it is, and you understand when it's could be used.
Mm. Yeah, thank you so much for explaining that because I've seen some people and it did not look good. It actually backfired. So thank you again for explaining that because people they have to understand that you're helping the Fortune 500 companies to be a better people because you're hiring better people, not the other way around, right? What are your
Yeah.
thoughts on that part?
Well, no, and absolutely. I think, employers have an opportunity to look at these employees coming in. And if they have a good brand out there and they've been doing stuff on social media, you have an opportunity to have them be ambassadors, tap into that. But don't, again, the employer shouldn't expect it.
Hmm.
That has to be something that, encourage employees that want to promote your company because they're proud of working there, and you
Hmm.
say no to them. I don't
Hmm.
understand that. I don't understand that at all. But I
Hmm.
think when you have a brand and you're proud of it, let them find out that your brand is good. Being a little humble goes a long way for your character. If you go
Hmm.
around bragging about, oh, look how many, how much I do, and look at all these followers or all the stuff that I do, it's I've never seen anyone look good when they brag.
Hmm.
It does not bode well for you. But a
That's
company will benefit from opening their mind up to having brand ambassadors, especially those that are willing to be.
Mm. Yeah, Felipa, thank you so much. There's a new segment that we have started on Back to Basics for season 3, and hopefully it'll go more, which is the rapid fire round. And this rapid fire round, we're gonna ask you some few questions, or I should say some words, and whatever word pops in your head, we'll just go from there. How about that?
All right, go ahead, shoot away.
Okay, so I hope I don't challenge you a lot there. The first word or phrase or whatever it is, hard skills versus soft skills.
Emotional intelligence is needed in leadership.
Okay. Resume,
Short, sweet, and to the point.
age,
Doesn't matter.
age versus skills,
A balance of both.
okay. Overqualified.
By choice.
Screening.
Very important.
Automation.
A tool.
Certification.
Valuable, adds credibility, not always a must.
College or no college?
Adds value, credibility, but not always a must.
Okay. Uh, Wealth.
Wealth is tied to physical, mental, and financial and family.
Okay. Branding.
Is more valuable than you think it is.
Okay. Human connection versus digital connection.
Digital connection will never replace a human connection.
Okay. Business versus reputation.
You tarnish your business, it could cause you to lose your, I'm sorry, you tarnish your reputation, it could cause you to lose your business.
Okay. The last two is going to be Felipe.
Somebody who I always try to aspire to be better every day as a father, professional, as a servant leader out there.
Awesome. And the last one is going to be back to basics.
Just always remembering that at the end of the day, people resonate with human beings and a human connection cannot be replaced.
Awesome. Thank you so much for playing the rapid fire round. Hopefully, I didn't challenge you enough. It's something that we like to test our guest when it comes to certain words and certain senses. And we want our viewers and listeners to understand that where our guest is coming from and what their thought process is.
Well,
So
I,
thank
I
you.
shot from the heart right there. So I definitely did not have time to prepare for that. So it was fun though. I like the challenge.
Thank you. Thank you again for that. Let me ask you this. Is there a certain book, movie, or music that relates to you nowadays that inspired you in every way?
Yeah, there's one of each I can think of, but I gotta say, if it's today, I gotta say Ted Lasso. Ted
Okay.
Lasso has really been something that has inspired me and has really spoken to me, and it's been very entertaining if you have not watched it.
Yeah. Wow. That's pretty awesome. Thank you. Thank you so much for that. There's a show that I've been watching lately. It's called The Playlist on Netflix, and that actually explains to you the whole vision, branding, business, money, no money, whatever it is, and it's all about Spotify and how Spotify became Spotify. So that's really, really amazing, and those are the things that we inspired both of us, right? I think in a funny way, in a serious way, and a
Yep.
business way. But thank you again for explaining that. And before you leave today, uh, I want to quickly ask you a question. When it comes to human resources, because that's the industry that you're in, do you think that the human connection for the human resources is dying, or are we understanding people nowadays? Because I think nowadays, I think we're vocal too much, right? We're verbally too much, right? Do you think that's dying, or do you think that's the new industry now that people understand each other?
No, I definitely don't think it's dying. I think, my wonderful uncle, God rest his soul, when I got into human resources 30 years ago, almost 30 years ago, he was a controller. He was an accountant by trade. And he very proudly would say, human resources is not going to last. Accounting's going to take it over. And he'd always have fun with me saying that. And back then, there was, it actually was started off being called personnel. And then human resources, that name really resonated with me. But what I think today is there's so much more with culture, with emotional intelligence, valuing those soft skills. We have soft skills as required skills on job descriptions now. They're not just nice to haves. And I think those are the things that human resources is definitely fueling, keeping alive. And as multi generations come into the workforce,
Hmm.
they're expecting it. They want to see that. So I think that it's going to be it's definitely not dying. I think if anything, it's growing, and I wouldn't say growing fast, but it's consistently growing.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you so much for explaining that, because I think there's a lot of people, they say that it's a dying industry, and I don't think it's dying. I think I think it's in the peak right now because we're trying to understand people and how they behave. So I think it's getting much better when it comes to that, and I think they're helping each other out, I think, from the employee and from employer point of view, right? So thank you again for explaining that. But before you leave today, do you have any last words to all my Back to Basic listeners and viewers? And how is your journey on Back to Basics too on top of that?
So I'm sorry, repeat that last part. I didn't hear that last
And
part.
how was your journey on Back to Basics too on top of that?
Well, first of all, my journey's been absolutely wonderful. It was a light, and you've been an amazing host, and I love the rapid fire. That added a lot of value to it. I think,
Thank you.
especially it makes you think quickly, and you again, when you think quickly, you kind of answer the most honest answer you can. But my message, I guess, to all the listeners you have is just remember that at the end of the day, people resonate with other people, and technology is great. AI is great. It's fun. I'm a techie. I love sci-fi. I love all these things. For me, I'm excited about it. But don't forget, at the end of the day, people resonate with people, and that's something that's never going to change.
Yeah, thank you so much for coming here, and I really enjoyed chatting with you. I've known you for years now, and I'm really glad that we're going to be much better friends even after this. And you have guided me in many different ways, especially about LinkedIn, and then on top of that, you made me think about the outside box, which is branding yourself and talking to people and making networks. And whoever's listening here, I think he's a great person to get in touch with, to get to know him better, as to maybe a good friend, maybe a beer friend, maybe. How about that? But Felipe, thank you again for coming here.
Thank you, Rush. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you. So, guys, we spoke with Felipe today, didn't we? And we talked about the basics of, well, humans versus automation versus digital versus humans. I mean, that's all we talked about, right? Because I think relationships is so important. Vocal is very important. Communication is very important. Actually, you know what? Communication is the key to success, according to me. Because you know what? If you don't talk and if you don't ask the right questions to the right people who are in their field, we won't get anywhere. And that's what Back to Basics is trying to do, to make it simple and basic and fun also at the same time. Now, as usual, as always, there is a quote of the day, and hopefully my guest will like the quote. The quote is, "The strength of the team is each individual member. The strength of each member is the team." You know, we keep on saying I, but honestly, I does not equal to team, because you know what, that's just what it is. We have to help each other out to make the team a strong team, and that's what I'm trying to do for Back to Basics. Try to make that big circle a really strong circle with all the people in front of me. So thank you again for coming to Back to Basics, and remember, what do we always say at the end of the episode? Everything in life goes back to basics, and that's what we did today, guys. Guys, we're almost over with season 3. Enjoy your day, and I will see you next week on Back to Basics. How was that for you?
That was awesome. It flew by, very comfortable. And one of my first LinkedIn lives, they did a rapid fire on me, and I forgot how much I enjoyed it until you did it. So when you said rapid fire, I'm like, oh, okay, I had fun last time, but I always worry because you never know what questions are going to come. So
yeah. Thank you again for tuning in to Back to Basics and listening to the excellent episode that we had today with our guest. With your love and support, we do need you to at least rate our show, review our show, because it does make us stronger day by day, week by week, as I usually say on my episodes. And there are 3 things in this episode that it makes a hit for me, which is the content, the guest, and definitely the host. So guys, take care, God bless, and remember, everything in life goes back to basics, and that's what we did today, guys. Guys, take care, God bless, and see you next time on Back to Basics.